Welcome to Puvanur RBIR Laya Academy of Music and Mathematics. Welcome to Puvanur RBIR Laya Academy of Music and Mathematics. After completion of level 5, we are now going through the salient features in each of the levels. Last episode we saw the salient features what we saw in the level 1. Today we are going to have a refresher of the salient features what we learned in level 2 in total. Before I get into the class, I'll start this class with the Tirukkural. தொடங்கற்க இவ்வினையும் எள்ளற்க முற்றும் இடம் கண்ட பின் அல் அது. What is the meaning of it? பகைவரை வளைத்தற்கு முற்றுகை இடுவதற்கு தகுந்த எழுத்தை தெரிந்து கொண்டால் அன்றி எத்தொழிலையும் தொடங்கக்கூடாது. அவர் வலிமையற்ற சிறியர் என்று இகழவும் கூடாது. So, before you capture, before you plan to surround your enemy, first of all you should find the right place. And you should also not demean your enemy with his power. What is his power? You have to measure it appropriately and find the right time to surround him and conquer over. That's the crux of this Tirukkural. With this good thought, I'll enter into the class. Today we are going to learn the salient features what we learned in level 2. Level 2 was interesting because that's actually the stepping stone for learning the Laya and its beauty, the different patterns and the sequences. We will go through the tour today. The first sequence what we learned in as part of level 2 was Tadhim Taddit sequence. The way we have to do is using the combined vowels, and then we also saw the positionally how you need to go through it. Tham Dheem Tam Dit Nam Dheem Tam Dheem. Sequences in this. So that's the first sequence what we learned as part of setting the groove into the Adithalam. We also learned several sequences in Adithalam. The first of it is Tadindina. When we learned, the concept was the logic of 4 lines, how you need to play. Open, close, 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 open, 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 open. This is the logic by which you need to pad up his dum when you play these 4-liners to go a variation from first line to the second line to the third, and the third line to the fourth. It gives a good contrast. When you play it together, it sounds musical because the sound variations you get with the combination of the combined syllables. So you need to be proficient with that. It's though it sounds simple like tad din dinna, when you actually play, it's not easy because you tend to slip and you may not play the same thing again and again. You might try to play different strokes. For getting into this proficiency takes a long time because it needs concentration. So then you need to have the combination. That's the thing we learned. We also grouped for remembrance purposes Kedatakadim family, Talangudim family, Takatanadim family, and I also told you the method by which you can have a Tom and Jerry, Jekyll and Hyde, like two friends, Ramu, Somu. You need to have phrases, whatever is there within that family, to remember it easily. Kedatakadim, Kedatakatakadim, Kedatakatakadim, Takadimi, Takadimi. Kedatakadim, Dhum Kedatakataka, Dhum Kedatakataka, Takatari Kedataka. It's something like when you do the first phrase, you will remember that I need to play the second phrase. When you play the another phrase, the first phrase, Kedatakadim, Dhum Kedatakataka, this Dhum Kedatakataka should give you a lead to play the next one. Dhum Kedatakataka, Takatari Kedataka. So it's well connected, and that's how you should remember it. As I told you, it's a relational study. So that way you will not be able to, you will not forget what you've learned when you do it like this. Similarly, in Talangudim family, you can play Talangudin, Talangu, Talangu, Takkat Talangu, Takadimi Talangu, Talangudum, Talangudum, Talangu, Talangu, Takatalangu, Takatalangu. All these are related phrases. The grouping will help you to play better. Talangu, 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 Takkat Talangu, Takkat Talangu, Takadimi Talangu, Takadimi Talangu, 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 Takkat Talangu, 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 Takadimi Talangu, Takadimi Talangu, Talangu, Talangu. You can interpret the way you have used these phrases in your own way and try to see that you're able to also play it in the mridanga. This next thing is the takadina. The takadina is a very, very difficult stroke because it's a combination of ki dhum dhum ki, ta dhum dhum ki. When you have to play takadina, tam, takadina, there are so many dhums. Your left hand is not capable enough initially. So to make it equally proficient with the right hand, you should play this Takadenadam phrase quite a number of times. So that proficiency will get only by playing continuously and your left gets that free movement. So Takadenadhim, Takadena. Takita takadina, 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 takadina tam, takadina tam, takadina. All these used for the Takadanadim family. Then the branching out of the next sequence was interesting. Tadindina, a key interlude happened, and you got the next sequence. Nam, dim, dim, na become nam. You added a key for every syllable in Tadindina, and that became a new sequence. You keep continuing this sequence a number of times to get to the groove of the sequence, and we also learned patterns around that sequence. Takkat takutiku takutiku takutiku. All these we interluded. We defined a pattern. We defined a 4-liner, a 2-liner, a reduction, a tirmanam. Nice way of building a storyboard of a particular sequence. How to embellish from a phrase. How to go from a phrase to a sequence. How to assemble the sequence in a particular order. How to do it in a systemic way of reduction. And how to play a tirmanam. This is a perfect example of making use of small puzzle pieces combining into some beautiful castle. So you made this, you've understood how this art blossoms into a beautiful castle now. That's the learning you underwent until this point. Then you started learning additional sequence. Then you started using the phrases Kedata, kedataka, kedata, kedataka, using this sequence. Takka, kedataka, kedataka, kedataka. Kitataka, kitataka, talangida, kitataka, takatari, kitataka. Used all these phrases and started playing a beautiful sequence with good combinations. This is what you learned with using these sequences. Then we went into the classic form of one of the brightest sequence in Adithalam is Tadhimi Taka Tadhimi Taka Tadim Tangata Taka Tadhimi Taka Tadim Taka Tadim Tangata Taka Tadim Taka Tadim Takadim Taka Tadim Tangata Taka Tangata Tadim Tangata Taka Tangata Tadim Tangata Taka Tangata Tadim Takata Taka Tarikata Taka. All those we learned. We learnt this sequence. This is one of the brightest lessons in the center of our learnings of Adithalam sequence. Then we got into the Madhyamakala phrase sequences. All these we saw as Madhyakala sequences. Then we learned the Sarvalagu pattern, which is appropriately fitting for most of the songs which are going to accompany in future. This sequence. Then we also saw the Tadhintangu sequence. After we learned this Takadimi Takajunu, Tangutaddin, Tangutadim, and Taddin Tang, these Sarvalagu sequences, we learned a very classic sequence which is called Takadin Dimi Din Dimi. is what we learned. So these are all the varied sequences we learned. We also learned for each of these sequences there were phrases which we interluded. There were definitions of a paragraph, the reduction of paragraph, and there were beautiful frills which we played in between, and also the thirmanams for each of these sequences I taught you. All these you need to refresh continuously, because this is the one classic thala where you're exposed to 12 different sequences, which is predominantly covering all aspects of your laya patterns. Tadhindina, takadimi dimi taka, takadimi tatadimi, tadhimi taka tadimi, din tadimi dinaka, dinkada takadin, din tangide, takadimi taka jundu, tangut tadin tangut tadi, tadin tangut tadin tangu, takadindimi dindimi. So all these aspects are covered, and all these sequences you play in a day, half an hour, take some group studies, ensure that you practice number of times iteratively, and ensure that you get the grip of the groove of playing it continuously for some time. Once when you get the sustenance, you will feel, you will enjoy like cycling, like typewriting, like playing a piano keyboard, like that sort of a proficiency you will get, and that will be a big motivating factor for you to continue this laya journey. Likewise, we also learned in Rupakatalam, we also learned in Misrachapatalam, we also learned in Gandachapatalam. The possible sequences based on its structure, I also defined how those structures are and what are their combinations, and how this Tadindina became Dinkitakadindina in Rupakatalam. In Misrachapatalam, it became Tadindina. It paired up with a 3 and a 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. It had a mixture of a 3 and a 4. El Misrachapatala is compared to a lion, elephant's walk, very royal because it's a mixture of an odd and an even. We also saw in Gandachapatala Din Kittaka Dinna. And there is a subtlety between Rupakatalam and Gandachapatalam. We also saw that Gandachap is 5 beats, Rupakam is 6 beats. Rupakam is Din Kittaka Din Dinna. In Gandachapa, Din Kittaka Dinna. So 2.5 and 3. There is a small difference. Din Kittaka Din Dinna. You normally tend to play a Din Kittaka Din Dinna in Gandachapa and you fail and slip the beat. You have to be conscious and you have to be careful what you're playing. And in Gandachapatala, Din Kittaka Dinna you have to play. You should not play the Rupakatalam there. And you should not play Gandam here in Rupakatalam. So you have to understand, and only when you express it and when you keep playing all these, telling it, you will get the complete idea of how to accompany and how to play for the right beats for the right structure. Then, of course, it's relational. Once when you convert a particular sequence into the particular form of a thala, of the 4 thalas, you can continue the same pattern. For that you need the discipline. For example, Din Kittaka Din Dinna, variations are Din Din Tata Din Din Na, Dontaka Dontaka Din Din Na, Din Din Kittaka Din Kittaka Din. So Ta Din Na, Ta Din Din Na, Ta Din Na, Kittaka Din Din Na, Ta Din Na, Ta Din Din Na, Ta Din Na, Dunkata Din Na. You should get to that groove and then try to play the phrases, and then sustenance should be there. All these you should keep building when you're doing the level 2 exercises, and then try to play the another tip I wanted to tell here is level 2 thalas are broken up into 12 different areas, 12 different zones. Each zone you can take and then play in its entirety. Then you can actually do a combination of paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, sequence 1 and sequence 4, sequence 2 and sequence 5, sequence 3 and sequence 7. Make those combinations and try to play continuously. And then playing 2 paragraphs, that is one exercise. Then playing 3 paragraphs at a time. Then playing 4 paragraphs at a time. So you have to improve your sustenance, not right away, and not giving clarity and then playing the entirety with which gives a confused state for the audience and you. Instead, play with clarity even when you play 1 paragraph. Play with clarity when you play 1 or 2 paragraphs. And then if you can play If you can do that for months, you will be able to play with clarity all the paragraphs together, and that will be a longer Taniyardanam. You will establish the stamina and strength, and without any dip in energy. That's important. So these are the aspects I want you to shape up and build up and refresh with looking back into my notes, looking back into my teachings, and practice well. Of course, always when you are doing a refresher in a level 2, you should also refresh level 1. The level 1 is a must. It's a mandatory thing where you always have to dwell upon, and that is the one which you're going to use it continuously in whatever level you are, which is going to give you the like Ramanama Japam. However, the more number of times as a person gets the Tejas, your playing will improve tremendously if you keep these sort of techniques of practicing in right proportions. I'll conclude this class with a Tirukural. முரண் சேர்ந்த மொயம்பின் அவர்க்கும் அரண் சேர்ந்தாம் ஆக்கம் பலவும் தரும். What is the meaning of it? பகைவரை காட்டிலும் வலிமையுள்ள அரசர்க்கும் தக்க காவலையுடைய இடத்தை அடைதல் பல நன்மைகளையும் உண்டாக்கும். Even though a king is more mightier than his enemy, you should always be surrounded with good people, with defense, proper defense. He has nice people to advise and nice battalion to win over his enemy, and it always does good. So you should always be protected before you actually try to do a specific job, and that is the strategy Tiruvallur talks about in this Tirukkural. With this good thought, I'm concluding this episode. I will see you in the next episode with the salient features, what we saw as part of level 3. Until then, Povanur Ravi here, signing off.